buttonholes. I'm doing this on a chunky so you can actually see the stitches, and also you need to imagine that I've picked up these pink stitches represent where I've picked up the front of the cardigan that I'm going to add a band to. This is a folded over band, and what you would do normally is the total number of rows you're going to knit to fold over. This is going to be 36 rows total, simply because it will be nice and big for you to be able to see. You divide the total number of rows that you're going to knit by 4, and then you knit a quarter of them at a time. A quarter of 36 is 9. I've knitted 9 rows. You now need to select which needles you're going to put your buttonholes on. Obviously, you'd space them out along the bed, but for these purposes, I'm only doing one. So I'm going to do 5, 4, and 3 are going to be my buttonhole needles. Bring them forward so the stitches drop behind the latch. Put on some contrast yarn and knit it through. Making sure the contrast yarn stays in the hooks. Then you knit the next quarter, which is another 9 rows. Knit the fold row at about 3 tensions higher. Knit the third quarter, another 9. And now the fun bit begins. Way down here you have those stitches that you knitted off. Bring those same needles forward. 1, 2, 3, and then an extra one on the left. You're now going to pick up the stitches above the contrast yarn there, on the same line as the contrast yarn, because those are actually the ones that you have got held in contrast. And you're going to put those on the needles. And then you're going to pick an extra one up there. So in theory, you're not going to drop any. You're then going to pull those through. Now you take the second needle of your buttonhole. This was the first needle, number 5 of your buttonhole. Take the one next to it, pick it up and put it on that needle. And I would advise hanging weights, because it has a tendency to jump off otherwise, the other needles. You're now going to pull it forward. No, you're not. You're going to then transfer that first buttonhole stitch onto the empty one you've just made, and then you're going to pull the stitch through again. So you've now got one empty needle. Take the second one along, put it on that needle, and then move that over. and then do the same thing again, which is knit it through, bring that extra needle that you brought up over and move it back, and pull it through. She says it's easy with practice. Pull it through, and I would suggest pulling that one out to hold because it has a tendency to jump off. Then go back to the bottom here and pick up the first row of stitches that you put onto the contrast yarn and fill in those holes. 1, 2, and when I can get hold of it, 3. Bring them out to hold if you like, and do the last quarter, 9. Now, I would imagine that you may decide to, when you're doing your band, you would then pick up the first row you knitted and attach it. I'm not going to. I'm going to show you what the buttonhole looks like. So I hope you can see. We take out the waste yarn, and that's obviously is a huge buttonhole, and I will try and move that a little closer now that I'm not knitting and my hand's in the way. The buttonhole, it's finished. It's a machine finished buttonhole. A simple buttonhole is just a matter of transferring a stitch onto the next needle, leave it in working position, knit across. Obviously it's huge, this, a chunky, but you end up with a buttonhole on a standard gauge that really wouldn't be big enough except for a baby garment. Another way is to another way would be to move 2 stitches over. This would create a much bigger buttonhole. Leave those needles in working position. Now the problem you've got here, of course, is this won't knit anymore because you can't have 2 like that. So drop that off the needles. Put your latch tool, put your tool in and twist it round and put it on the needle. And twist it round. The gate pegs on here in the way, and knit across. And that has formed the stitches properly. Knit a few more rows, and you've got a much bigger buttonhole. Okay, hope that was helpful.